We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, adoption of the agenda. I'll take a motion. Motion from Leonetti, support from Romano. Any questions? Seeing none, please vote. Agenda is adopted. Next up, approval of the minutes dated September 25th, 2019. Motion from Brown, support from Sauger. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please vote. Minutes are approved. Next up, public participation. Anybody from the public? Seeing no public, we will close public participation and move on to 6A, purchase Highland Prosecutor Scan, Index, and Retrieve licenses in the amount of $66,450.17. Motion from Commissioner Brown to approve. Is there support? Support from Commissioner Ha. Go ahead, Jaco. Jaco, can you turn on your microphone, please?
We should just call that Jaco's microphone as many times you're up there.
Perfect. Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, no, that took an awful long time for it to.
Yeah, it did. It was behind my folder here. I told the commissioner earlier, don't ask me technical questions. This one is something that we brought in front of the board on April this year, and it's the Scan, Index, Retrieve project for the prosecutors. What we're doing here is, or this request is just to purchase the licensing that was included in that when we came to you. The licensing amount went up with $3,385.38. Main reason for that is we never purchase licenses, right once we have approval and so on. We will only purchase the licenses when needed because you start paying maintenance at the time that you purchase licensing. So we don't like to purchase and then sit for a few months with licensing that we have to pay maintenance on. So that's the reason it's only coming in front of you now. The product will be going live the 1st of next month. So at this point in time, we would like to purchase the licenses, and that's needed for the go live. The actual total request was $119,864.79. There was a $10,000 contractual assistance item in there, which we don't anticipate using. We're not going to use it. It's beyond that stage now. So the extra $3,000 is accounted for in the money that has been amended for this project.
Thank you, Jaco. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize to the board members, a little confused. Is this the one where we budgeted X amount and it was a lot more than what we had budgeted originally? And we made a budget amendment on this? Is this the one?
No, this one is not.
This is a separate one?
This is a separate one. This is actually,
Okay.
this project's not over budget.
The next question, how many licensed users are you going to achieve? Are you trying to?
I think if I remember correctly, Commissioner, it was 125. Let me just.
125 users?
125 users, yes.
And
quantity of 125. It's for the prosecutor, prosecuting attorney.
They have
for their
125?
offices. Yes.
Prosecutors?
Well, the office overall, 125 users, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, good to see you. I don't know who did this board of recommendation sheet here, but it's good. I like it. I mean, there's a lot of data on here about how much this software is going to save us if you looked at it. This is one of the better ones I've seen, actually. So I don't know if it was you, if it was the department.
It's one of my project managers, Mary Ann Zach.
Okay.
And it actually, soon after Crystal introduced us to the new form, I asked Mary Ann if she can make sure, because there were a few line items in there that state savings, but there wasn't really numbers attached to it. And Mary Ann went back and actually quantified everything for us and provided that information.
I appreciate that. Give our regards to Mary Ann for doing that. I mean, this is nice, and this is a good example of what I'd like to see when we have project. I know Crystal was the one, and the board was responsible for putting this together and making department heads do it, but I don't see it except now from him. I haven't seen it from any other department head, so thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Crystal and Commissioner Carabelli, for coming up with that template. It's very helpful when it's utilized. Commissioner Romano.
I just want to say ditto for Commissioner Leonetti's statement. I totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, please vote. Motion passes 11-0. Next is item 6B, budget amendment, capital improvement plan, Acela Environmental Health Solution in the amount of $66,200. I'll take a motion to recommend to full board the approval of this. Commissioner Leonetti, support from Commissioner Sauger. Go ahead, Jaco.
This is an item that I brought before you last year, towards the end of last year, if I remember correctly. At that point in time, we asked for $150,000 so we can kick off this project. And the project's been going back and forth. We couldn't get it off the ground. Main reason for that was the vendor, Acela, was in the process of developing a new software solution, a SaaS or a software as a service package, which is completely online. And at the recommendation of our technical people, we decided to wait and not go, and start developing this whole software when they are in the process of developing a new solution, so we can see what the differences are and not develop things at a cost that we don't have to pay for. Anyway, fast forward to beginning of this year, that eventually happened and we started the process. What we learned very early on was that the solution that they provide or anticipate providing to us just was not going to cut it. There wasn't enough. When we look at our health department has a lot of data fields that we don't seem to find in other departments. And the decision at that point in time was made to go back to what they call their best practices solution, which is what this is. So they came in, they did the full assessment, and it was worked out that the actual cost of this was going to be, I think it was $160,000 for this scope of work. And then there's also an amount of $33,000 for licensing that's requested in this request. The full project amount that was budgeted for this project is $346,000 and a few extra dollars over a time span of 3 years. This is just the first phase that we're talking about. We, at this point in time, are asking that we complete the first phase. The first phase has 3 different applications that's being replaced at environmental health. Phase 2 and 3 has additional applications that will be done, but at this point in time, there is just no way for us to assess what the cost of phase 2 and 3 is going to be. It's kind of a difficult situation because I would like to give you more information at this point in time because personally I believe this project will most likely go over budget over the 3-year period. But it is very difficult at this point in time unless we do a lot of work at cost to be able to give you more accurate numbers. But at least for the first phase, we'll be able to complete those three projects, or 3 applications.
Thank you, Jaco. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, again, licensing, how many users are you going to have on this?
There is a total, if I remember correctly, of 20, I think 21 or 22 in this round.
And is that a $33,000 yearly licensing fee?
That's a yearly cost. That's SaaS licensing, which is software as a service.
Okay,
So
and
we
then-
pay an annual fee for that.
And then you have maintenance of $52,800 a year on top of that?
That maintenance of 52,000 includes everything.
Is that-
It
is-
includes that.
Licensing?
Exactly, the licensing as well.
Okay. All right, so then, that is $105,600 a year, and this is just phase 1. And if you go to phase 2, there's probably additional licensing, or is that?
There is additional licensing. The total cost of licensing for the whole project was estimated at $91,000 per year.
A year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And again, this is, to the fellow board members, is, we approve something for a couple $100,000, then you look at it, and then we're adding $91,000 a year for as long as you have it. And there's where your dollars and cents are adding up on every one of these things that we're putting into this. Not Jaco's fault, it's just, yeah. And
Yeah, that's a good point, Commissioner, and I think, what's happening in general with licensing, it's moving from the traditional way that we purchase licensing to these SaaS-type licenses, which is software as a service. And you pay you pretty much rent that licensing for as long as you use their product. So every year you pay for their license.
okay, and then I'm going to ask this question because I know you do some of that co-op stuff, Oakland County, and different things. Are we grouping on some of these products with some of the other counties to maybe lower some of this?
We absolutely try wherever we can, buy off of existing contracts, things like that, and we have conversations on this product specifically. We had conversations, the original cost of these licenses were $250 per license. We were able to drive it down to $199 per license, and on a, there was a lot of back and forth around this, and eventually we were able to get the cost at that level.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple questions. And again, this is regard to the board recommendation sheet that was prepared. It indicates the 3 phases, and the first phase deals with on-site septic, well, property transfers, point of sales. And then the second phase, which you're indicating is going to be a while away, or you're not sure what it's going to cost, is food protection, waste, water quality, and subdivisions. Was there a conscious choice in which areas we were going to start with first?
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
We were mostly led by our, health department.
Okay.
And it has a lot of components to it, but one of the biggest components determining how we're going to do this was resources.
Okay.
And it's mostly resources from the health department being available to do this. Every time you come in and you do a conversion like this, it's disruptive, as you can imagine. It's learning new skills, doing things differently, but it is disruptive to their daily operations. So they can only dedicate so much time to something like that before they start impacting their services to communities.
So the department had decided to organize these priorities in that way?
In that basis,
okay.
That's correct.
The other question I have is, it says here there's 14 licenses in the amount of $33,600 that are going to be implemented for phase 1. So I assume that's for the on-site septic well property in transfers for point of sales. You indicated how many total licenses were there for the project?
We already purchased 8 licenses for this
Okay.
project to kick off the project.
Okay.
So it's 18 plus 14, and that's 22.
So 22.
And that's for the first phase.
That's just for phase 1.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
the rest of the licensing will be, so if you look at that, it's about 20, 30. We've purchased, once this is approved, we would have purchased about 50 to 53,000. So
Okay.
there's going to be about another maybe 17, 18 licenses.
For the next two phases?
For the
or-
next two phases.
For the next two phases. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano.
I withdraw, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is kind of a budget question, and I'll consolidate all my three button pushings into this one question. Really excited. Yes. And so I understand this budget, this item was approved in our last budget overall.
That's correct.
So why is it being positioned as an amendment then to the budget today?
This is, when I came to you last year to ask to kick off this project, we requested $150,000. What this is doing, it is adding additional licensing and it's adding additional scope to this first phase. The first phase, when I came to you, it wasn't asked, or the request for $150,000 wasn't to do the first phase. It was to kick off the whole project so they can come in, do their assessment and tell us, how this is going to work. At that point in time, we do the best we can to kind of give you an idea of how much it's going to cost. But it wasn't really an exact cost to what we think the first phase is going to cost, if I'm...
Okay, so Jacob, has this increased the overall total cost of the project by this amount, or is it just the first phase has been increased by this?
It's just the first phase, because I only have $150,000 approved from this board.
So what it'll do...
I cannot now go and write checks for $207,000.
So the effect of approving this will be to lessen the demands on a future budget by approximately the same amount, because the overall project is going to cost the same. We're just shifting about when we pay it.
Exactly. Overall, the project's still in budget, but like I said when I started this off, I'm not 100% sure about phase 2 or 3. Personally, I feel that the first phase is more than what I anticipated it would be. But at this point in time, for us to determine what phase 2 and 3 is going to cost, it's going to cost us money to get that information. So at this point in time, my best guess estimate is that the project cost will increase beyond the $346,000. But I cannot tell you at this point in time how much that's going to be. But at least with this money, we can complete the first phase of this project.
Well, I hope it doesn't increase too much beyond that, given that we're investing a couple $100,000.
I completely understand.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for that explanation, Jacob. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chair Smith.
Thank you, Jaco. I think what will be helpful to a lot of us in the future, and we're talking to Crystal about this, and maybe she can work with you, is to understand if these different projects that come before us are replacing an old project. Like say it's the brand new Microsoft and we're replacing an old, in the old license was $60,000 a year and the new license is $72,000 a year. It'd be beneficial to us to hear if we're replacing an old system and we're going to get a little relief from that payment and kind of add it to this one, or if it's just a brand new idea, right, or a brand new system that you said this would work better. But then for us to hear, how are we doing it before, right? Because no matter where we're at with all of this, unless it's a brand new problem that just cropped up, we've been tackling these issues for years and years and years. So how were we doing things before? And obviously this is more of a general question, so I'm not asking you. And maybe if you want to explain this one right here, what were we doing before? Are we saving money by doing something newer? So we're not going to be paying the old fees and licensing fees. It makes a difference, I think, because sometimes if we're just upgrading and we have to upgrade, we understand that sometimes systems fall out of date. But if it's brand new, we also maybe want to hear, how were we doing this before, and is it worth, I mean, I know it's worth it to you, but is it always worth jumping into the newest way to do things when we were handling it before for maybe less money, maybe more labor, but so it just would make a lot more sense to us sometimes, I think.
I have appreciation for that. I can tell you that this particular project was in our budget in a different format for probably the last 8 to 9 years. Mm-hmm. At the health department, we have environmental health specifically. We have, I think, about 6 or 7 different access applications, legacy access applications that was written many, many years ago. And they still provide it in that manner. A lot of it was manual and a lot of it through these access applications. And you know, we always wanted to rewrite those applications. Eventually, about 2 to 3 years ago, the project manager in our department that was on this, and the health department started talking to different firms about, you know, these solutions that they used for water and restaurants and all these things. You know, if there's a product, Acela was one of the companies that came to the forefront that wrote their own solutions as a package to provide all those different aspects of government. And that's how the whole project came about. So it is a replacement of an antiquated system. It has to be replaced because we really fell out of compliance from a, not a health perspective, but from an IT perspective. The program is just old, and we will either have to rewrite the applications or we will have to do it with something that's out there.
Right, so the old applications, were we paying yearly for licensing even though the applications were old?
No,
or this is a new?
Just the software to use it. You know, it was written in-house by the IT department, I would say probably about 14, 15 years ago.
And to go back to, I would say Commissioner Carabelli says it the most, one of these times I would love to hear that this new system is saving us X amount of money, and this person now is, you know, that it's going to retire at the end of this year. We don't need to replace them, right? Because we keep talking about how, you know, the technology saves us, and it saves us time, and it saves us money. But we never see less people. We just see more technology and licensing. So I'm just, I know it, and I know it works, right? I mean, at some point, but we got to figure out at some point to show it, right? It's kind of like the electric lights. You know, it's like the new, you know, better lights. Where's the energy savings at some point, right? I know it's there, but where does it go? Anyway, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Janko. And most of what I was going to say, the chairman just said it. You used the term, Janko, we need it. And I think that's critically important in the analysis when we get into these discussions, not only time savings, resource savings, these service contracts, every one of these keeps adding cost and cost and cost. And when we look at this picture in its entirety, I don't know if there's any IT experts sitting around the table up here, but we're relying on you and your assessment of whether or not it's need, want, or desire.
Absolutely.
And that's critically important. And when we had our budget discussion, I said, when I worked at GM and we went through the cost-cutting measures, the first place they came was to IT and said, okay, all this stuff's on hold because we will catch up later on. Well, the catch-up costs more than implementing it at the time, but nevertheless, we need that type of, I do personally, that type of assessment, and it ties in with what Commissioner Leonetti said. Knowing there's a savings there at the end of it is critically important, as well as knowing there's 9 years of service contracts at, what was it, $33,000 a piece as part of the total cost. So I realized when our friend down here asked the question, are we adding this additionally to what was originally approved? You said, I can't give you costs for the second and third year. Understandable. But when you're looking for approval of a project, somebody's got to know something in there at some time. So I would personally appreciate that type of information moving forward, because quite frankly, I think we see you more than we do anybody else. And that may be part of the process or part of the solution or part of the problem. So need your help with that. So thank you.
Absolutely, Commissioner. And
thanks, Mr. Chair.
It's very valuable comments, and I just want to also, in the last meeting that we had, the budget meeting, Commissioner Drolet brought up the question about increased cost in IT, you know, and that it's not sustainable. I absolutely agree with that. But it is a very difficult scenario and situation to always make sure that you are aware of cost, making sure that you keep costs down as far as possible, but also not fall behind. It's very difficult when people ask you, what savings are you getting in IT? You're getting savings, but how the industry work, they use that to do other things, to do more with what you were able to do before. In a new type of environment, they do things differently, better, whatever. And eventually, you know, you go down that road and cost is being added. And the difficulty is determining at what level am I satisfied, this is what I want to do, and, you know, how do you control that growth over time? And sometimes it is cyclical and sometimes it's not. So I'm very aware of those things and always try to be sensible about the way that we go about spending money.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Drillette on the second round.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what some of the other commissioners have recently asked. What if I know we're into this project and we're already going into the first round, but what if we didn't do it? You mentioned that we have an existing way of doing it that's outdated. But could we have just kept doing it? Could we, I mean, for the money we're paying for licensing in this project, we could hire a new person, do nothing but this all day, and save money, you know, just enter things and track things. What would we be losing if we just kept doing things the way we were doing rather than investing in this new particular product?
Like I said, you know, the applications that we currently use is antiquated. We have to replace them. We cannot continue, you know, down this path. So from an IT perspective, we will have to rewrite those applications, which is a big task.
But we could hire somebody to rewrite it and have to do nothing but for 2 years.
We can definitely hire somebody, but this is my concern, and this is the difficulty. You know, it costs a lot of money. But what we also have to, just like maintenance and everything grows, when you write an application, tomorrow you have to support that application. And that is the difficulty from our perspective, is then continuing to support that with any updates that come out, anything from a state requirements, new state requirements that come out, and so forth. Everything that happens, you have to do that as they require that from you. And you have to keep on maintaining the application. It puts a lot of strain on our resources as a department as well. And it's not that I don't do that. We write applications, but we try to focus on things that has not been invented, in other words, customized. When somebody needs something different than what other people need. But if it's already developed by somebody else, for us to go and reinvent the wheel and compete with that, it's very difficult, because it's a lot of work you have to do.
How many licenses are we talking about again? 9, did you say?
I think there's 22 or so, 21 in the first round, and then there's probably another 16, 17 in the second round, maybe up to 20. It's a total of $91,000.
$91,000 per year in the licensing cost. Okay, I don't know what we could hire or what the alternative is for $91,000 a year. You know, just without even then having to invest in a new system, just paying $91,000 a year for somebody to, you know, modernize it. But I trust that you know, as a result, instead of hiring someone to do it and modernize the system and just keep paying them in-house, we're going to get better results that are going to be more efficient in some capacity, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, Jacob.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions or comments, please vote. Motion passes 10-0. Next is item 6C. I'll take a motion to recommend the full board approve the contract for S-Cube in the amount of $161,483.13 and the purchase quote for Acela in the amount of $33,600. Motion from Leonetti, support from Romano. Anything else to add, Jaco?
Nope, it's good.
There are no questions or comments. Please vote. Thank you, Jaco. Motion passes 9-0. All right, next up is new business. I have 3 things really quick for new business. First, in the House Elections Committee this morning, the 2 bills came up for a vote for the 4-year terms for county commissioners. That passed unanimously. Also, last night out of the House, the full House, the raise the age bills that Pete Lucido was pushing, those passed out of the House. Raise the age. Yeah.
Sorry, not yours.
Yeah, we're not raising your age, Joe. That one we're going to have to keep an eye on because in a few years may have some financial implications on the county if some fixes aren't put in there, some changes are made. Commissioner Kleinfeld's nodding her head. And third and lastly, I want to congratulate my sister and her now husband. They got married on Saturday. They are proud residents of Fraser, Commissioner Hawes District. But I just wanted to congratulate the both of them. Any other commissioners with new business? Commissioner Kleinfeld.
I had to go to Lansing this week with a meeting with the clerks, register of deeds, and treasurers. The 4-year came up. Do you know if what's in those bills is 2020 or 2022? Because there's a big debate over that.
That's I believe right now it's the 2022. I know in the Senate there's discussion of staggering terms and things like that, so we could see some changes coming.
Okay, because I think that there's also going to be some folks that feel very strongly that it shouldn't be 2022 because they don't want commissioners to have free shots at their seats. And the Raise the Age, MAC is really pushing hard on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners with new business?
Thank you for the Lansing legislative update.
You're welcome. Anytime. Next up is public participation. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will close public participation. Motion to adjourn from Commissioner Drollet, support from Commissioner Leonetti. Please vote. And we are adjourned. Thank you.